Which Mario game has the best hub world? There's one very important part in video games that not every gamer thinks about, and that would be the hub world. Whether it be a bigger, more open world game or a more linear design, the hub world is something that can drastically improve your experience. The hub world of video games has a bigger impact than many gamers realize. So today we'll be a little specific and look at the different hub worlds in Mario games. The first two games actually didn't have hub worlds at all. Super Mario Bros. 1 and 2 just simply took you level by level, and there was no in between. In fact, the Japanese version of Mario Bros. 2, aka The Lost Levels, also didn't have a hub world at all. But honestly, that's to be expected, considering the time period the games were created and the simplicity of each game. However, not too long after, with the introduction of Super Mario Bros. 3 in 1988, Mario got his first ever hub world. And honestly, it's not much of a hub world, but rather more of just a world map. However, it did include some pretty cool graphics and even some enemies that moved around. Each map would of course look like its corresponding world, and you would simply just walk from level to level. However, even if it's not much, it's still really cool to have, and it was the one that started it all, technically. Unfortunately, the first Mario handheld game did not have a hub world. It is stated that the game takes place in what's called Sarasa Land, but that's really about it. In my opinion, I feel like if it did have a hub world, it would be a nice one. However, Super Mario Land 2, on the other hand, had a world map that was a bit more immersive than the one from Mario Bros. 3. And that's pretty impressive considering it's a handheld game with limited technology during the time. I just think the Mario Land 2 world map had more character than Mario Bros. 3. It had you doing things like climbing up trees, walking into a turtle's mouth, and this. Yeah. Each one had its own unique background and overall just had much more charm than the previous games. The first games mentioned are pretty much the ones that started it all. The 2D Mario games of course didn't have much of a hub world. As mentioned earlier, they were more of just world maps pretty much. However, they were the ones that pretty much started it all. The early 2D games set the tone for what was to come when it comes to the world maps of the more modern 2D Marios. Take New Super Mario Bros. Wii for example, arguably one of the most innovative 2D Mario games ever. Its world map is very similar to the way the older 2D Mario games were. Mario Bros. Wonder took the idea and expanded it further, creating the most charming version yet. Almost like a mixture of 3D World, which we'll get to later, and Mario Bros. U, which is awesome. And until New Super Mario Bros. For the DS was released, it had been 14 whole years until we had seen another 2D game. That just goes to show how that type of world map just worked. And honestly, they function very similar to how the older world maps did. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty of things, the 3D Mario games. And of course we're starting off with Super Mario 64. Now the thing about the 3D Mario games is that almost every hub world is loved by Nintendo fans. Almost. But we'll get to the almost later. Many Nintendo fans will argue that Peach's Castle is the best hub world of all the Mario games, which says a lot considering this was the very first 3D Mario. With that being said, Peach's Castle is honestly pretty simple. It consists of many rooms in which you'll enter to be able to get to the levels. It even has a courtyard and a basement. If you go outside, you will see a bridge because the castle is surrounded by a moat. And other than that, there's pretty much just some hedges around and you'll see some butterflies here and there. In the Super Mario 64 DS version, there will actually be some bunnies outside too. Even with such simplicity, this hub world is among the most beloved of all time. It utilizes its simpleness in the best way possible, using every part of the castle as a way to access new levels. And even when you get 120 stars, you're allowed to access the top of the castle where you'll find Yoshi. Peach's Castle is just a place you can't go wrong with. I'm sure if a new 3D Mario game came out with this as the hub world, it would be very exciting for many players. Super Mario 64 gave us a strong start. Moving along, we have Super Mario Sunshine. Now, this is my personal favorite hub world. Delfino Plaza has so much character, there's so much to explore, and it's just a joy to run around in. It's a bright, sunny vacation spot, and there are a good bit of NPCs around the plaza to talk to and interact with. Delfino Plaza is located on Isle Delfino, in which you can actually see other areas and levels in the distance around it, including Pinna Park and Rico Harbor. In my opinion, this is a hub world done perfectly well. However, I can see why it may not be as popular or as loved as some of the other Mario hub worlds. Sometimes the levels and stages can be a bit difficult to find, and it can feel like a pain to have to run around such a large area just to get to different levels. However, for me personally, that's never really been an issue. I always thought it was really cool, honestly, but I don't see it get nearly as much love as this next hub world. Super Mario Galaxy. This is arguably the best hub world in Mario history. The amount of love I see this hub world get is insane, and I completely agree. While I do love Delfino Plaza, I can safely say that the Comet Observatory is a close runner-up. It does pretty much everything right. It isn't too big where it's a pain to get to different levels, and it isn't too small to the point where not enough is going on. It consists of a bedroom, a kitchen, an engine room, even a garden. Most of the areas start off darkened out. As you progress through the game, they start to light up, and you can see just how charming they are. Rosalina sits in the middle, and Lumas fly all around the observatory with a few toads as well. I mean, if you jump off the side, it will literally catch you and bring you right back up. What's there not to love about this hub world? And next up we have this. Alright. I know that people don't really like Starship Mario, but honestly, I love it. It is on the smaller side, and to be fair, it's literally just a ship of Mario's head. But let's look past that, right? There's green grass and flowers everywhere. You have Lubba, which is just a ray of sunshine, and there's also Lumas flying everywhere. And on top of that, as you progress through the game, more and more characters from different galaxies will join you on the ship. You have this room inside Mario's cap that showcases the different power-ups you get as you go. And let's not forget Captain Toad's ship. I think compared to the Comet Observatory, it's easy to dislike this hub world, but honestly, it has tons of charm and character to it, and I actually love it. These next two games kinda just miss the mark when it comes to hub worlds, those being 3D Land and 3D World. Super Mario 3D Land's world map is just kinda pathetic, honestly. You kinda just run from side to side and that's about it. Given it was on the 3DS and it was also meant to be a game that was similar in style and function to the 2D games, but just in 3D. So it does make a little bit of sense to have a world map so simple. Instead of an overhead look done by pretty much every other 2D title, this one has a camera angle that's right in front of the path that you're taking, and you pretty much just run side to side. Each world has a different background, and there's also 3D models of each level shown before you jump into them. However, it's just kind of bland, and it lacks the charm that other hub worlds and world maps have. 3D World, on the other hand, did things a little bit better. It can actually kind of be considered more of a hub world than a world map. Similar to the new Super Mario Bros. Series, it has kind of this overhead camera look, and each different world has different landscape, of course. Given this game was just kind of a better version of 3D Land, taking on a similar function of bringing the 2D style into the 3D world. So again, having a not so great hub world isn't really that big of a deal. With that being said, it's still a little more on the bland side. The map is interactable in some places with having blocks you can smash and even using pipes to reach some levels, but that's about it. Honestly, I feel like this could have been done for 3D Land, and 3D World could have had something a little bit better. This next one is a bit of a weird one with Super Mario Odyssey, because the hub world is literally just the Odyssey, the ship that you use to get around from kingdom to kingdom, and it's not like Starship Mario at all. It's really just a small ship. Granted, it is a bit cozy in there, but it just lacks the charm that all the other hub worlds have. However, I can give credit where it's due, and it is a very unique hub area. You can go inside the Odyssey and look around a bit, even if it is pretty small. And honestly, it's pretty cool that you can even do that, considering that Nintendo didn't have to add that feature. They could have just made it to where you aren't able to access the inside and just have to choose what kingdom you want to go to. It kind of gives me the vibe of different domes in Galaxy 1. We're just gonna briefly go over Bowser's Fury because I'm not sure if you can really call it a hub world considering everything is kinda just tied all together. Imagine Super Mario Sunshine if you could play all the levels right there on Isle Delfino. If you consider 3D Worlds area as a hub area, then that would make it among the best, honestly. Anyways, moving on, we can't forget about the Paper Mario hub worlds. The Paper Mario series has absolutely brought some creativity into the hub worlds. We have places like Toad Town, Rogue Port, and Port Prisma. The Paper Mario hub worlds can be a joy to explore and talk to different characters in. Some would argue that they rival the 3D Mario hub worlds in terms of uniqueness and charm. However, they're simply just not talked about enough. I personally haven't played all the Paper Mario games, but I noticed that most Nintendo players' favorite hub world is Rogueport, which is honestly surprising considering the more eerie Mario levels usually don't get that amount of love. And if you've been to Rogueport, you know that it's kind of like the dangerous part of the town or whatever, you know. However, it could just be because this Paper Mario game is so good. I'm not really sure. But I can say that I really like this one as well, honestly. And I just wanted to take a short little moment to mention Bean Bean Castletown from Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. You just can't forget about that one. And last but not least, we have the sports games, which there are actually not very many. You have the Kingdom of Basque from Mario Tennis Aces, but the one we really want to talk about is the Baseball Kingdom. This hub world from Mario Super Sluggers has so much charm and character to it. It's so fun to go through the story mode, exploring different areas and talking to so many different characters. Each area of course has its own unique traits and feels to them. Places like Mario Stadium are bright and happy, while Wario Stadium is more eerie and gloomy. DK Stadium is located in a jungle of course, and there's just overall so much charm in this small kingdom. Well, over the years we've seen lots of different maps, areas, and hub worlds throughout Mario's history, and overall even the bad ones have good qualities to them. Mario hub worlds have always been lovely, and I'm sure Nintendo fans would love to see what they can come up with next. Comment down below which hub world is your favorite, and as always, y'all have a blessed day.